Hi, everyone. This is Dr. Colleen Meyer with Meyer and Mintz LLC, bringing you Fearless in Pink. You guys, we have an amazing woman with us today. You're going to be blown away by the knowledge this woman has about triumphing over grief. Her name is Cherie Barnes. She's an author, a coach, a therapist, and the founder of the Healing Group Community, LLC. She helps people triumph over grief and life transition process. She's the creator of the Triumph Over Grief membership program and Healing Group Community online support network. So, Cherie, welcome to Fearless in Pink. So go ahead and tell us a little bit more about you that I haven't already covered.
Hi,
Colleen. The floor is yours.
Hi, thank you so much for inviting me on the podcast. I appreciate it. You've said like a lot. So I am a therapist. I am a coach. I'm a counselor, and I help people triumph over their grief. It's a personal journey for me as I begin to figure out how to triumph over my own grief. And so as I figured out how to climb myself out, I wanted to help others. And so that is kind of how I founded my business and kind of what I do today.
I love that. I love that. So you say this is your personal experience. When you got into, you decided, which came first? I wanted to be a therapist, and then I went through this and I focus on grief now, or something happened where, something happened to you where you want to say, okay, I have experienced grief. I want to share that, and then became a counselor. Which way did it go?
I was a therapist first. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to use the skills that I've learned, the knowledge from school and all that. And I'm like, I can do this. But when it hit home, you know how sometimes things hit so close to home that, you can't see it. But then when it really hits you, or someone it hits, you're like, oh my God, I can't do this. And so I'm trying to use the stuff in a tool belt box, then the book bag that I learned, and it didn't work. So I was like, okay, I got to figure out something. And so, I'm trying to take the skills I learned to help myself, and it just wasn't working. And so I just really had to really figure out how to help my own self in my own grief journey. And so, like I said, it was my own intimate grief journey. I lost the love of my life. And so that was just the worst time of my life. And so as I began to pick up the pieces of my life and use the tools I learned, and, and I tell people all the time, therapists need a therapist. And so I had to get a therapist to help myself. And so I use those tools to help me. And as I begin to do that, I begin to get better. And, now I help other people deal with grief and life transitions and, help people get to a better place.
That's amazing that you take that experience, because there's a lot of counselors out there. And I think what makes you special as a therapist is you went through something that was painful. You said to yourself, I need additional support, even though I'm a therapist. Then you went, you learned, and then now you help other people. Because I think if a person's it's easier to relate to somebody who's been through it.
Yeah.
And I think you bringing that to the table is impactful for people going through grief and loss. Don't you think that's true? I mean, if I was trying to say it, they're going to be like, get out of here, but you know what somebody's talking about, what that feels like. They can believe in you, and you can say, I get it. And they know that you got it.
Yep. That is so true. I mean, I tell people all the time, as a therapist, I deal with grief specifically, but, life transition, anxiety, depression, other things that we all experience in life. I help people with that as well. But when it comes to grief specifically, I can truly say I walked in those shoes, and I understand, when you don't go to sleep at night, or when you can't eat, or when you need someone to come and hold your hand. as you're in the process, I know what that feels like because I had people to do it for me, and so I encourage people to find a support system no matter where you are in your grief journey, because sometimes you're at the very beginning, you're kind of like in the middle, and not the end, because you're going to experience grief for the rest of your life. To love is to grieve, and to grieve is love. And so you're going to experience that the rest of your life. But when you are no longer in that place where you're crying every day and you can't make decisions for yourself, or whatnot, when you get to the end, you can move forward, or you have more skills to help you be better, and so you're going to always be in that space.
I've seen people grieve. Actually, one of my dearest friends that I've known since I was in 7th grade unexpectedly lost her sister recently. Yeah. And she said, this is the hardest thing I have ever done in my life or been through in my life. Do you find that it's sometimes people don't know how to grieve? I mean, they're grieving, but to deal with that and process it.
Oh yeah, you know what? There's no handbook to this stuff. You just kind of go as you go along, and that's why you need that support system, whether it is a co-worker, whether it's a church member, whether it's your neighbor, whether it's a classmate. You need somebody to hold your hand as you kind of walk through this, because there's nothing written that says, okay, on day 15, you're going to do this, or year 20, you're going to do this. I mean, there's nothing that says this is the guidelines that you follow, and so you just kind of have to figure out as you go, it's minute by minute, day by day, week by week, month by month, what that looks like, and figure it out and fill in the places that, you missed.
That's amazing. Now you also have your healing group community. So tell us what that is.
Sure. It's a community that I have on Facebook. It's a private group, and you have to be invited to join. And so we are a bustling membership of 240 people. And so every day we have a different theme, and it's designed to help you triumph over your grief, to heal, and so Mondays we do motivational pieces, and so we post things that will motivate someone that's in their grief journey. And so on Tuesdays we do things, what did you triumph over? And it's not necessarily you triumph over grief, but it could be I triumphed over, I didn't cry as much last week, and so we do post that way. And on Wednesday, everybody wins. You see those posts is Winning Wednesday. There is a win each week, each day, each month in your journey. And so we talk about that. And we want to know about it because we want to celebrate you. On Thursdays, you triumphing over something. It's not necessarily your grief, but it's something. Friday is resources. A lot of times, and there's people from all over in the group. And so we post resources for someone who may need it, whether it's another support group, whether it's clothing, whether it's food, it's something that you might need. And especially we talk about things with kids. And so, our young people, they deal with grief different ways. And so there may be something that it will impact the kids, an activity or something that may just help them a little better. And on Sundays, because I am a woman of faith, we post things about inspiration in church and self-care, so there's each day, 7 days a week, there's something designed to help you, whether it's that one little post you read in the morning or that post you read in the evening. And then I do special trainings for my group. So I have a training this Friday coming up, and we're going to talk about secondary losses. So, the primary loss is the actual physical death of the individual. But then when you have those secondary losses, those are all these other losses that people experience that we don't talk about. And so we're going to have a special training about that on this Friday. So just try to help people get a little bit of inspiration, a little bit of laughter, a little fun, a little something to help them in their journey.
No, I like that you have that group, because I've seen this myself, and I'm going to be honest, because we're transparent here.
That's right. Yes, we are.
I get uncomfortable too. People get
Yeah.
uncomfortable when somebody's grieving, because it's not that you don't care about a person, but for me, I can speak for myself, and I think this is true for other people. I don't know how to comfort that person, so it becomes uncomfortable. And and we can't tell people get over it. I hate that. Or we're going to give you closure. Like if somebody was a victim of a crime, we're going to give you closure. It's like, what closure can you possibly give me? Can you talk a little bit about like me being uncomfortable, and how you can help people like me to help other people that are like maybe a family or friend? And then
grief is so uncomfortable. You don't want to talk about it. You don't want to deal with it. You want to just lock it up in a box and put it in a corner somewhere, because I don't want to be bothered with it. But the saying everybody says is that either one, I know how you feel, or my condolences, or I'm sorry for your loss. Sometimes people just really need to know that you are there for them. And so, I don't say the cliche, I'm sorry for your loss. You're in my thoughts, because I want them to know that one, I am sorry, but I want them to know that you are in my thoughts. Like I said, since I'm a woman of faith, you are in my prayers, that, and when they feel at some point that they want to either have help or they want to reach out, one of the things that, we do, like I said, we talked about this with Michelle, you bring food to people, because they're hungry, that's a way of self-expression. It's a way of love, but, not necessarily bringing food all of the time, maybe connecting with someone that's close to them and finding out from them specifically, is there something that they're really in need of? Tell me what it is so that I can do it. It may not be a meal. It may be picking up the laundry. It may be getting the kids from school. It may be having the kids for a couple of hours just so that they can have a peace of mind. And so going back to, being uncomfortable, it is a very comfortable situation, uncomfortable situation, but sometimes being with that person just in the same room, not necessarily saying anything, them knowing you're there, that is comfortable for you, and it's definitely comfortable for them because you're there for them.
I like that. What you were saying, that really makes sense to me, because when people, people have great hearts and they want to bring food and they want to do these things, but just being with them and being still, and I think to me that's doable, because that's me. That's the real me. Rather than trying to figure out how I need to be for this person. And you're saying
it's authentic. They can be in a living room and you can just be in the kitchen watching television, watching the kids in the next room while they're playing a game or TV or something. Just the fact that you're there and they don't have to worry about, I'm making arrangements and I'm kind of call people and I'm doing this. There's someone that's within eye shot of them taking care of the kids, and that's one less thing they have to worry about.
That's so impactful to me. I think that gives people ways that they can help without all that other stuff that makes, I think, people feel uncomfortable just being there for that person. I love that. Cherie, tell me, when you're dealing with somebody who comes in who's dealing with a loss, do you have them do journaling? How do you, what kind of things do you say to them, maybe to help them? Because it's a process, right?
Yes.
They go from here, and it's a process. And, what are the things that you would tell them? Is there something, a thought process, like, tell yourself, I don't know, how wonderful memories, remember this or remember that of a person, or journaling. What are some of the things that you tell people that helps them through that process?
The first thing I want them to know is that it is a safe space. Sometimes people are not comfortable with sharing, what's happened to them, how they got to the place. So the very first thing I want them to know, it is a safe place, that whatever you tell me when we're in this process, it is confidential. And that, you know, unless you tell me something that's going to harm yourself or others within confidentiality, I want them to know that it's between us and the doors, that's in the four walls. That's it. Because that seems to put people at ease once they know that they can share whatever it is they want to tell me. And so that's the very first thing, is I want to make sure they know it's a safe place. The second thing is I want to know about their loved one. I'm like, tell me about this wonderful person. Tell me who this person is. And so that brings up so many emotions. It's tears, it's laughter. Sometimes people, they jump up and down because they're so excited to tell me about their loved one. And so I want them to tell me, but I want to experience what they think, how they felt about this person. And so once we get to that point, sometimes that takes a couple of sessions for them to tell me who this person is to them and how they've impacted their life. And so once I at least learn that about them, the next thing I want them to do is tell me a story. Tell me a story about who this person was in their life, and, you know, what it is that they've done for you, and how it's impacted you, but how now that they're not here, how has the loss affected them? And so from there, we'll begin to talk about their feelings, and then we'll talk about homework assignments, and we'll talk about journaling, and, you know, the other different things that we use. But those are just some of the beginning stages that I go through with someone as soon as, you know, they identify that they are in need of therapy and that they are ready to move forward. Because I find sometimes people, they come, they start, they're like, I got this, and then what's called a grief burst out of nowhere, you know, they begin to feel the emotions, the crying, and it just overwhelms them and they can't continue. And so, you know, they say, I can't. So I just kind of want to give them some tools in the beginning, and if they can't finish, that's fine. I tell them, you know, let's re-engage at some point. You let me know when you're ready, and then we'll pick back up where we left off.
You know, Cherie, I like the what you took me through right now, the processes, because I think it makes it okay for people to have those memories. And to, like you said, sometimes they'll laugh, tell a story, tell me about that person. And I think that mentally is working them through that. It's expressing it, sharing that person because they love that person.
Yes.
You know, and I can see that. And I think that's amazing. Do you find that there's one hurdle that most people, when they're going through the process, face? Is there, or maybe, you know, different circumstances, right? But is there maybe a common hurdle that you see that people struggle with in their grief process?
They do not want to let go. And of course, you want to hold on to your love. You know, that person was everything to you. But as I've continued to learn myself, you know, in terms of counseling theories and education and, you know, things like that, I find that there is a theory called continuing bonds. And so I'm really big on this now because it's not a new theory, but it's, to me, more relevant now that we are in the pandemic and we're coming out of it. You know, we're able to go to the cemeteries and, you know, visit people if that's how you want to show your love and homage. We're able to have funerals and actually be there for a family. We're able to do the memorials and not just do a balloon release, you know, to celebrate our loved ones, but know that they're continually there with you still. You know, that just because they're physically not here anymore, they continue to live. And so you still have those bonds with that person, whether they're here or wherever, you know, whatever your faith believes that person is, they're still here. And so you can still reach out to them. You can still, you know, make plans. You can still do things that you guys used to do together, whether it was a family or a couple or a friendship. You still can do those things, and that person is still going to be there.
Wow, that's some powerful stuff. It's, you're doing great work. Now you have your book.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about your book.
I have several. My very first
Look at me. Several. Tell us about your book.
My very first book is 12 Lessons of Healing Through Grief. And so that book came out in November, and I lost my beloved Mark in January. And so that was just shy some months, 6, 7, 8 months after he passed. I had to figure out how to get my story out, and so I sat on the edge of my bed between a tear in my journal, and I started writing. And so that's kind of what happened with that book. And so from there, I wrote, several other books. Like I said, I'm a woman of faith. And so I sat one weekend and was like, okay, God, I can't do this. You got to help me. And so I started writing about, different losses. And so that was the conversation with God. And so that's that particular devotional. And then I did my own anthology with other women who have lost someone. And when I tell you, that book right there, it's Triumph Over Grief. And so that's where I got that name from. That was such a powerful story. Those women shared and poured out, the losses. I had one young lady, she lost her mom and her father within a short time frame. And another young lady in the book, she lost her mom and her grandmother short time frame. And another young lady, she was experiencing the loss of her father. And so I talked about the loss of my father and the loss of my beloved. And so that was one of the most powerful things I had experienced, just knowing not only I've been through this, but others have been through this, and they share their story. And so, that just was amazing. And so I have a couple other, books that I've come out with, but I have a journal. It's called Grief Essentials. And so there's one thing in there. It's a grief time tracker. When you are grieving, you lose track of time. You don't know what's day or night or up and down. And so there's a grief tracker in there where you can track your time and write different things that you need to do, because sometimes you need a reminder because you're not thinking clearly or you have so much on your plate. Use the grief tracker to track your time and figure out what's important. What can you do now? What can you do later? What can be held, for another time. And so that's just kind of one of the things in that particular book. And I have just a line journal where people just can write out their thoughts, because if you're overwhelmed, you got so much stuff, you don't know where to start. And so that's just a few of the books that I have that, I'm helping people, using narrative therapy, telling their story, trying to get themselves together as they're dealing with their own grief.
I love that. I love that. I think it's help. It's just amazing where I'm almost, and which is rare for me, speechless, because it's like, I think as you're talking, I'm picturing people in my head who've lost their mother, who has lost their sister, who's lost their their adult children, but they're still, you're always your babies, right?
Yes, and, always.
And having someone like you that says, I have this journal that can help you work through your grief. I have this, I have I have my books. I have my Facebook. I'm a therapist. I can help you with other things, but it's just my specialty. And it's so important that people, because if people don't get that, then you can have another tragedy. Of that person doing something to themselves.
Absolutely. And that's
then the whole family, right? Now it's double on these people, on your family.
I agree. That's when the depression sets in, and suicidal thoughts and suicidal ideation and all these other things that can, really affect the mental status of an individual.
Wow, that's so impactful. Now, if someone wanted to buy your books or your journal, or you're talking, it's a book, they can work through. How could they find it? They're
available all on Amazon. All they have to do is just search my name, Cherie Barnes, or go to my bit.ly link, bit.ly/Cherie Books. and all of the collection will come up.
Okay, great. Because we're going to post that. We're going to put that on when we put this out on the podcast and YouTube. We're going to get all that information for people that they want to get a hold of you, how to do so. But I just wanted to say the work that you're doing is so important, so amazing. And I'm so happy. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on here with us and share your specialty and your heart with us. We appreciate that. Is there anything else you would want to add before we sign off a little bit?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you so much for inviting me. It has been a pleasure. And I have a free gift for your audience. It's a download of the time tracker for Grief Essentials. And so they can pick that up at griefessentials.org. And all they do is put their information in and they'll get a copy of it along with some other worksheets.
Oh, that's great. And we'll put that information on there for everyone. And so we appreciate you coming on. It's been a great conversation. And we'll see everyone next week.
Okay, bye.